Good evening. I'm Howard Townsend, and I'm the proud principal of Jamestown High School. And I am honored to welcome you to our very first virtual open house. We'll start with some faces to know. First, again, I'm Howard Townsend, and I am proud to serve as your principal for this year. Returning from last year is Karen Scott. She is one of our assistant principals and services students with the last names A through L. Joining us from Varina High School this year is Leslie English as one of our assistant principals, and she services students with the last names M through Z. Returning from last year is Ann Vinson as our student advancement coach. Our school improvement specialist position has just been filled, and we will have a picture of that person in the not too distant future. Our school counselors are led by Ms. Jessica Switzer. Returning from last year is Ms. McNeil. Now, she's out currently, but we have a long term substitute who will service her alphabet by the name of Mrs. Janine Jackson. Ms. Smethurst returns, and at one of our newest school counselors, Mrs. Daisley. Mrs. Daisley joins us from East Rockingham High School, where she served as the lead counselor. Now, I collected information from families about what you wanted me to address. And one of the main things our families wanted me to address was, how is this going to be different? Well, change happens all the time. The difference is this global pandemic, it's pushed the speedometer even faster. We've moved from semester-based classes to a mostly year-long schedule. We moved from the hybrid 4x4 schedule to a year-long schedule for our courses. And why the change now? Well, we instituted this hybrid 4x4 model to address the graduation needs of our students at that time in the early 90s, late 80s. However, we're finding our graduation standards have changed since the 30-year installation of this hybrid model. We have fewer required classes for students so that families have more flexibility to prepare for college, workforce, internships, and the military. The hybrid model limited the courses students could take. Matching semester courses with year-long courses created conflicts where students would choose between taking their desired courses. The year-long model allows us to meet more of our student needs. While no single school schedule is perfect, the year-long model does give our families much more flexibility. So how does this affect my student? Well, if you're a senior, the change affects that portion of our student body the most. What we've worked with our counselors to do is to be very flexible with the needs of our seniors. For our other students, in the past, students only took 4 classes at a time. With this year-long alternating schedule, students will have an entire year with their teacher, but they will alternate 4 classes every other day. While that can be a challenge for some of our families, what I would suggest is to reach out to your school counselor and your teacher to talk about the course load and how your student will react to it. So what's the difference? Well, last spring changed us. Schools, families worked to meet the needs of our students. However, the quick change left little for planning. Many parents are concerned that the learning strategies and tools from the spring will be the same used in the fall. However, the spring represented emergency remote teaching, while this fall will bring remote learning. So what's the difference between those two terms? Well, emergency remote teaching is a temporary shift of instructional delivery to an alternative delivery mode due to a crisis situation. The primary objective in these instances is not to create a robust educational ecosystem, but rather to provide temporary access to instruction and supports in a manner that is reliably available in an emergency. So when we take a look at remote learning that we're using this year, this is where we are creating the ecosystem that goes along with this remote setting. There's a fear that students will be treated like they're in a correspondence course or in a raft in an ocean without any connection. That isn't what remote learning really is. Remote learning is an investment in the ecosystem that comes along with the instruction. Emergency emergency remote teaching doesn't create the connections to the content and skills that remote teaching does. Families should expect discussion and a deeper engagement than last spring. Students are supported in a remote teaching environment. Students will not be left to fend for themselves. So, who are we? What is Jamestown about? Well, here are our core values, and we revisited them last year. Our core values were created by students and faculty. These core values form our school-wide expectations. Students were asked to come up with words that identify what a student in good standing exhibits at Jamestown High School. And our students and faculty came up with the acronym FLIGHT, that students are focused, demonstrate leadership, are inclusive, are globally aware, exhibit honor, and recognize that education is a transformative process. This year, we took a harder look at two of those terms and included the words inclusion and transformation. In the past, the T represented tolerance. Our student body felt we were ready to move beyond tolerance and move towards a culture and a climate of inclusion, that diverse ideas are welcomed and honored at Jamestown High School, and that through that inclusion, we will learn more about our world and recognize that as we grow at Jamestown High School, this educational process should change us. As you come into Jamestown High School as a freshman, the expectation is that by the time you graduate, you're not the same person. In the end, we have our core values that really make us who we are. But our perspective of our world should change with more education and more experience. Next, we move into engage in being present. Well, how do you take attendance online? Well, teachers will continue to take attendance through Student View, just like we've always done. However, we are currently finalizing procedures to account for students who are engaging with school content at different times and finding a way to document that to show to give data to our state and the federal governments. For grade promotion, for students who are entering the ninth grade after 2018, 2019, to be promoted to the 10th grade, you need at least 5 credits. To be promoted to the 11th grade, you need at least 11. And to be promoted to the 12th grade, you need at least 15 credits. So make sure your grades are your priority. If you have a question about your graduation standing, please reach out to your school counselor. For students who entered ninth grade prior to the 2018-2019 school year, the students must have the following credits to be promoted. So in preparing, we have to be accountable for what we are doing and where we are. We've got to recognize that our words matter. We have to be accountable for our speech. A threat is a concerning communication or behavior that suggests a person may intend to harm him or herself or someone else. The threat may be spoken, written, or gestured. It is considered a threat regardless of whether it is observed or communicated directly to the target of the threat, or observed by or communicated to a third party. There are many times students say things and not recognize what they said, the impact of what they said. So please be careful about what you say and what you post. Bullying is not tolerated. At Jamestown High School or any school in WJCC and WJCC schools, if you do feel you are being bullied or harassed, you can reach out to your teacher, a school counselor, an administrator. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, we do have an online anonymous way to report bullying. So if you see it online in a hallway at a school function, you can get us that information. This information goes to the hearing officer at our central office, and it starts a timeline of 24 hours. Once a bullying or harassment submission is given, we have 24 hours to start that investigation and give feedback to our hearing officer. If you have any further questions about our bullying policy or harassment policy, please reach out to one of our assistant principals. Digital citizenship. Increasingly, we are seeing technology invade into our ordinary lives. Even our refrigerators have the internet now, and we leave a digital footprint. Please remember, in using the technology, classroom teachers set the expectations for technology use. Students are accountable for their WJCC issued technology. For more information regarding educational technology, please visit our school division's website. There are a diverse number of devices that students can use. To figure out what's going to work best for your student, talk to your young person and see what works best for them that also fit with guidelines that are established on our school division's website. Social media is a great way to get a message out. However, social media posts can affect your standing in school and can violate our WJCC's code of conduct. Posts made to social media can have lasting effects. Think before you post. Is this post hurtful? Please remember that these posts are saved on a server somewhere on this planet. And while you're 15 and maybe that funny joke that you found online, you may think it's appropriate now. But 20 years from now, when you're going for a job application and this digital trail follows you, you don't want to have to answer for something you did or said when you were 15 years old. So please think before you post. Your data, your name. Make sure in this digital world that you're logging off of applications. Never give your passwords and lock codes to anyone. Know your posts and comments are on a server in another location, and leave a digital trail to who you really are. You want to make sure that your digital imprint really shows what's in your heart and who you are. Now, even though we're not in our building, we still must address safety. We have safety drills that we have to do according to state and federal law. We have our lockdown drills. This is when an intruder is in the building. There is a drill procedure where our students are to seek safety. If a student is outside of JHS, we do have a designated area for students to hide and seek shelter. And our track outside of our school is also one of our staging areas in the event of a lockdown procedure. Operation Stay Put is a little different. This is when everyone stays in class and everyone stays in class. Instruction continues. However, we limit the amount of movement in a hallway for a bevy of different reasons. There could be a sick student or staff member. We may need to find a particular student, or there may be a search of our building. In the event of an earthquake, students are to come to the assigned section of the first floor. When we return to the building, our teachers will share the assigned places and procedures with our students. In the event of a high wind event or a tornado, students are to move away from windows and move into the hallway on the first floor. Currently, while we're not in the building, we still have procedures for the cafeteria or our lunchroom. However, moving forward, we will have updated and additional guidelines with best practice actions for keeping socially distant and making sure the area stays clean. Again, when we return to school, we'll see some updated procedures. These next 4 items are things Eagles need to avoid because not only are they violations of our WJCC Code of Conduct, they could also carry a charge from the James City County Police. And that is the possession or sale of drugs, alcohol, or tobacco, bullying or cyberbullying, stealing, fighting, and or verbal or physical altercations. So that's who we are. Let's talk a little bit about what we do. And what do Eagles do? We fall forward. We recognize that we are not perfect, but that does not deter us from making mistakes and taking risks. We recognize that taking risks and making mistakes are a part of the learning process. And from those mistakes, we fall forward and learn. We work together. Even though our school has a diverse student body and faculty, we are united by our passion for learning and helping others. What unites us is stronger than anything that could divide us. We remove doubts. We do not allow others to dictate how high our goals and expectations are. We honor the past, we prepare for the future, but we must live in the present. What you do today, what you're doing right now, matters most. And we've got to keep moving forward. And finally, we pursue excellence. We don't chase it. We pursue it with a vigor and an expectation that we're going to catch it. So that's what we do at Jamestown High School. And when we come together, we have this idea of the Jamestown heartbeat. And when we hear heartbeat, we clap to hear that heartbeat. And when we can get back into our building and we have 1,300 people and you hear the heartbeat, it'll shake the very foundation of our building. I hope to see you all soon. Welcome to the 2020-2021 school year. Heartbeat. Let's go to work.